we've had Dean Malenko, the man of 1,000 holds, right? I'm sure there's probably a man of 1,000 masks. I got Mr. Kennedy, Ken Kennedy. What was the other ones?
Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, Mr. Anderson, Ken Anderson. Like, how many names have you had in the business?
I started out as Two Rivers Jack. That was the first.
Yeah, I remember that. I've been reading about it. Let's see it.
The guy that so I had reached out when I decided that I wanted to get into the wrestling business. I reached out to this guy named Rockin' Randy. He ran the North American Wrestling Federation outside of Chicago.
Okay.
And then he, for whatever reason, I was from Two Rivers, Wisconsin, and he told me, like, if you make it, I'm going to call you Two Rivers Jack. And so
I say it's the stuff they come up with. I always say to my guests on here, this is like the first time we're on a road trip together. The discussions we have. When did you first start watching wrestling? Do you recollect?
Yes. It was like 1998, 97, 98, something like that.
And you would have been?
I was like 20 years old.
Okay, so you came later.
Yeah. I was, when I was a kid, when I was really little, I watched briefly.
Right.
I remember the cartoon on Saturday was what initially got me into it. And then like Saturday night's main event would be on. I don't think it was a regular show, right? It was just like every once in a while.
A couple times a year, 4 or 5 times a year, I think.
And my dad would let me stay up and watch that. And then for whatever reason.
Was your dad a fan of the business?
No, not really.
Yeah.
No. And then I just sort of fell off of it, and I fell into it's all fake, and
sure.
So like my whole life, grade school, high school, it was why would you watch that stuff? And I had a really good friend who would wear wrestling shirts all the time, and he would talk about it.
Yeah.
And I would give him such a hard time. Like, why do you watch that garbage? It's a bunch of guys rolling around on the floor with each other, and tights and baby oil and
diapers,
bag shavers, and then one night I was at his house, and he was like, "We're watching wrestling tonight. That's it."
Right.
And I was like, "Okay, whatever." And so I'm watching, and he goes, watch this. And I heard this glass break, and this guy with the shaved head drove to the ring in a pickup truck, and he had a 6-pack of beer, and he was like, stunnering people. And, I was like, okay, that guy's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then my roommates at the time would watch wrestling, and so I would like, tell me when Stone Cold's on and I'll come down and watch it. And then I would come down and I would watch, and then I'd see The Undertaker, and I was like, that guy's kind of cool too. And then I slowly started getting sucked into. And then within weeks, I was bought in completely. And I was like, why did I miss this? Why have I been missing this all these years? And then wrestling had become so ubiquitous. It was like everywhere, wrestlers on the cover of TV Guide, and Stone Cold's doing the Got Milk commercials and the ads and stuff like that. So then I was just like all in. That's all we would talk about was pro wrestling.
Me, like the moment where I knew wrestling had changed was when I saw Hulk Hogan walk on the Johnny Carson show. It was just different. You didn't see wrestlers there. Yeah, oh yeah. It was. And I started watching when I was really young, like 4 or 5, studio wrestling out of Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Then before cable, and you get out of it, you get a little bit older. When I was about 12 or 13, cable came to Pittsburgh. And my dad got it. My mom and dad were divorced. I was at my dad's house for the weekend, and they had just put the box in, and they gave my dad a TV Guide. So he's looking through the TV Guide, and he goes, hey, wrestling's on tonight at midnight. I didn't even have it a day. My dad even knew what wrestling was. Hell yeah. So we sat down, and the very first segment on that show was the Grand Wizard, who was really good on the stick and just squirrely, and you hated him, right? But Superstar Billy Graham, the bleached blonde hair, the body. I was a big comic book mark, and I'm looking at this and going like he's. This was the coolest I've ever seen.
Just right away.
Yeah, they're behind a cage, and he's getting ready for a big angle with Bruno, who is of course a Pittsburgh guy, and he takes the cab. He goes, "I would do this to you, San Martino," and it was like a real life Superman, tie-dyed, the gift of gab, and I'm going, hey, he's going to kill Bruno San Martino, right? And then my friends and I built arena. It takes a whole different tang of the story. Obviously, you were involved in sports prior.
Sort of.
Yeah.
I never played I never played football or anything like that. I played football with my friends.
Sure.
I was in swimming. I was a regular swimmer, really, decent swimmer.
Right.
Never made it to state or anything like that. I ran track a little bit. But I was and I was kind of a theater kid a little bit. Like I enjoyed it, but
little setup.
Yeah.
The theater and the sports.
And it was kind of funny how it was like when I found wrestling, it was like I did enjoy sports. I liked watching. I just, like I said, I never played, like, I was never in organized sports.
Right.
And I had just gotten into working out. That friend of mine that introduced me to wrestling, he had also introduced me to like working out, bodybuilding a little bit. And so it was like all of these things that I love. It's like this perfect marriage of all those things.
And so there's an epiphany. My God, what am I missing all these years, right?
Totally.
Because that's a very different, like most people have a story similar to mine. They watched it younger, came back to it, whatever. But like in yours, the fascinating part is the theater catch, because as you know, in our business, it's both athletic and what I guess kids today and other things would call cosplay or headspace or whatever. And if you have theater experience, and that's going to make that a lot easier to do. That was honestly for me, that was the awkward part. Like you feel a little bit embarrassed to go out and do these things, right? But you're done different.
I was totally, that was the part that I was super comfortable with. Yeah. Was just throwing myself out there, putting myself out there. Promos I loved. And, you know, guys that could talk, that was like who I gravitated towards.
Well, as you know, that's a huge part of as you've done so well with your career. I was talking on the segment for our other show with the answering the questions from our fans, that how integral and important the promo is. I think it's at times more important than the moves, right? It's because it's the setup, it's the hook that's going to bring the fans in, and it had become a lost art. But full disclosure, I was never, it wasn't like because I screwed them, I'm not going to watch it. It was, I was pretty busy on the road still. So like I didn't really want to come home and watch wrestling because of that. But when I did start dabbling back into it a little bit, I saw you. And I thought, man, like the whole, the drop mic, like the old boxing stuff, you know, all that, it seemed like a throwback in ways to a previous era. And that hooked me in. That interested me because like it looked to me like I could tell you had some kind of athletic background, and then the presence on camera that is the later thing that you learn in our business. And from the first time I saw you, it was great to watch. For me to see somebody that was known for promos, suddenly we have another guy that can do this, and it was important.
Thank you. That means a lot to me.
No, I appreciate it, man. Thank you. It was fun to watch. What was your, okay, so now you've started watching it, you've realized you've been missing out on something, but like I always ask people, because every time we're at a convention, thousands of people walking through here, I believe that every person in that building, if you said, if I could snap my fingers and make you a wrestler, they would do it, right? That's why they're there. Yeah. So what was it about you that said, you think I can do this? I mean, it's fake. The dressing room's full of monsters and legends. You watch the guys like Harley that are just phenomenal at it. And it's a ballsy thing for never having that back.
What makes you think that you can do this?
Right.
I like I said, all we would talk about was pro wrestling. And I was at a party one night, and a bunch of us standing around just shooting the breeze. And one of my friends said, "You know that like you can go to wrestling schools? There's like." I work with this lady, and she says that her son goes to a wrestling school. And I was like, what do you mean? Because it never even dawned on me, like, how do these guys do this?
Right,
like, how do you learn how to do this?
Yeah.
And so that's all I could think about. I remember I went home that night, and just probably like 1 o'clock in the morning, I jumped online, and there was no AOL, or it was like no Google at the time. Or, you know, it was like, it was like Ask Jeeves or something like that. And I typed in, I remember thinking if I'm looking for a pro wrestling school, there's not going to be one. I'm going to have to go to one of the major cities like LA, New York, or Chicago. So I looked up, Chicago was the closest city. It was like 3 hours away. I said, I'll look up Chicago. So I typed in, and that's when it brought me to the North American Wrestling Federation, and they had a number, and I called and I left a message just inquiring about training. Yeah. And I remember thinking, and I didn't know anything about the business. Right. I had never read a wrestling book. I had certainly not read Mick Foley's book. In fact, I don't think it had come out. Yeah. But I was like, because I worked every other weekend at a nuclear power plant. I was a security guard. And I remember thinking, like, I can go down, I'll drive down on the weekends, and I'll train. I can sleep in my car, and then I can come back up and I can go back and forth like that, you know? Yeah. And this guy called me a few days later and said, hey, I got your number from Rockin' Randy in Chicago. I'm opening a school in Green Bay, Wisconsin, which is 30 minutes away from me.
Yeah, well, nice.
And he's like, I'd like to we'll do a tryout. So I went up to Green Bay the next day and it was $175 for the tryout. I remember I walked into this room. It was like an old JCPenney.
Yeah.
And it was like, it had, it'd been almost torn down or whatever.
Right.
All the lights were off except for one light above the ring. And it was a 16-foot low rider.
Yeah.
The ropes were kind of saggy. There was like duct tape and rips and tears and blood stains and God knows what stains all over the place, And I remember thinking like,
this is wrestling.
I can't believe this. This is awesome. Like, no,
I love it.
I was like, I can't believe that's a real wrestling. And he's like, that's the honky tonk man blood right there. And
I love it.
I got in the ring and he showed me how to bump. He showed me how to run the ropes. A couple other things, and I was just like, "This is it."
Yeah, like knowing our business, me showing a kid how to run the ropes isn't teach you how to run the ropes, right? I mean, did you come back with your back all bruised up and?
No, because like I was always shown they showed me to run it like flat right away, So
see, we were taught differently. We were taught to lean it, but always wrap the arm.
Yeah.
And there was a match early on. The viewers have heard this story before, but Mick Foley and Dominic were wrestling me and one of Dominic's students named Dave Klebanski. Dave was a big, like 420, just a big, not fat, not muscular, just big, And he and Mick are doing the spot where they're running the ropes. So I'm like, I'm watching the side of the ring, and they're like doing their crisscross, and I see Mick hit the ropes, and I blink, and Mick's gone. I just, what the hell was that? Mick had hit the ropes, snapped the rope, and the turnbuckle let loose, and it shot right by my head. Would have killed me if it hit me. But because Mick, he didn't even know what he was doing, tensed up, we had that arm wrapped, and so that always stuck in, like how Dominic taught us. Like he would have landed right on his head if not.
Yeah.
So, but it's always fascinating to me to hear the different styles because there's not a right style. Like that's proper. Mm-hmm. Rapping is proper. It's what you're comfortable with.
Yep.
So it's okay. So how long was the tryout?
I always tell my students like the right way is the way that nobody gets hurt. Right?
Yeah. Like, bingo. Yeah.
The tryout was probably 2 hours, and then we went.
He blow you up?
Not too terribly. Like he didn't. Yeah. He was never that guy was never. The old school style. I've heard these horror stories about like people. They want you to quit. They almost want you to quit. And he wasn't like that.
Nor was Dominic. Yeah.
I want to show you things the right way, and then we went and we sat down and I remember we went to Grandma Gertie's. It was this restaurant, hole in the wall restaurant. And we had lunch and talked about it. And he's like, Do you want to do it? I was like, how did I do?
Yeah.
He was like, oh, you passed. So you can start next Sunday. And then it was every Sunday I would work, or every other Sunday actually, because I worked every other weekend.
Right.
9 months I trained.
Yeah, as a security guard at the nuclear. Mm-hmm. So America, you're safe. You got pro wrestlers watching your nuclear stuff. So now I'm curious, how long did you train? And what did he charge for the training at that time?
I think it was $12.50.
Wow.
And I believe I never actually paid it off. Like he let me pay in installments, and I never completed my.
Yeah.
I never paid it off, and he never really chased me or whatever. He was.
Well,
we became friends. We became.
Right. Years before, I guess. What years is 98, you said?
99.
Okay, 99. So in 82.
No, it was actually in 98.
Okay.
Because I debuted in January of 99.
Okay. So 82, 83, Dominic was charging $1,500. Mm-hmm. But again, like you asked last night, for how long? That was just, until you got it. You come every week. But it's like you said, he didn't like take all the money from you. I told you the story last night with Dominic, same thing. Do you suppose there was probably some point, like you have a wrestling school. Mm-hmm. If you got that star student and he goes, oh, Mr. Kennedy's teaching me.
Yeah.
That's a selling point, right? This kid's pretty good. I'm going to go to Mr. Kennedy's wrestling school. I think Dominic and this guy, do you think that was part of it? Like, and they're thinking not coming after the money.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Because I started working independence, and I started traveling a lot, and I was a really hard worker, and I got along with people, and
yeah.
And so he was like,
A lot of indies up in that area?
Yeah, there were a fair amount between like Chicago, Wisconsin, and then Minnesota. I started traveling over to Minnesota a lot.
Yeah.
And Minnesota's always been a hotbed for pro wrestling. And at the time, there were probably 5 or 6 indies that were working. So, it was like a couple times a month I'd go over there.
Was Vern still in business in 98?
No.
Out by that time?
No.
Yeah,
he wasn't. No, neither Vern nor Greg. It was just Eddie Sharkey was though. I
I knew Eddie very well. Did you ever meet Derek Dukes up there? Derek, good guy. Yeah, I haven't seen him for years, but good guy. So how long, but from the time you started training until you had that first match?
9 months.
Oh, that's about normal. You're about
And
normal.
if it was up to me, I probably would have trained another 6 months because I've always been a guy that like I want to make sure that I'm doing everything right.
Yeah.
And it turns out that sometimes you just have to put yourself out there and then kind of fine tune it as you go. Yeah.
Hey, with Dominic, it was we would be months. I think a couple months in, he sent me to Puerto Rico, but he knew it wasn't going to be for matches. It was just going to be go out and do whatever they needed you to do.
Yeah.
The penultimate thing to me with Dominic was his approach to safety, was to make sure that we were throwing the guy right and landing right and being careful. Did your guy do the same? Very good, very good. That's important.
Yep.
As fans would probably understand.
Safety is just and especially safety of your opponent. Anytime if you go to pick somebody up and you don't feel like you're going to be able to return him to the earth safely,
Right.
Audible out, and I would rather hurt myself than hurt the other guy.
Sure,
you know what I mean?
100%.
Like,
Yes.
that kind of thing.
Now, I'm curious, like when you were training at that time, were the wrestlers or the trainers at that time, we used to always hear from not just Dominic, but like when Bruno would come over or whoever, there were always these wrestling stars coming by. I mean, not always, but a couple times a year. But we were always told the top 3 rules of wrestling: take care of your opponent, take care of yourself, take care of each other. And I was talking to somebody, a friend of mine, the 7-foot actor, is always on the road with me the other day, and I said, you stop. I asked Kevin Sullivan.
I love that guy. He's great. By the way.
What a monster, right?
Yeah.
But I asked Kevin Sullivan this. What was it, about 3 years ago when I asked Kevin, 3.5 years ago, how many matches you had in your career? Because I was just starting in my head like conjuring how many times I worked, and he goes, I just figured this out. He said about 10,000. I went, okay, in that 10,000 matches, how many times were you physically unable to go to the ring? He said 1 time, the last match. He said, I couldn't go to the next match because the kid dropped me on my head. And you think about doing something 10,000 times, especially as unorthodox as Kevin was, and not getting hurt or not hurting other people. And that's the thing that always, I give all the props to our business, because back in the day, we're on the road 350, 370 matches. And it was rare that there was a serious injury, maybe a sprain here, stitches there or whatever, but not like, oh, Ken needs surgery or going to be out for 6 months. And now it seems a lot higher than that. What's your thoughts on that as to why that's happening? Have they gotten away from the safety issue or the safe approach?
No, it might have something to do with the style. There's a lot more high risk stuff taking place. I think.
Yeah.
Not flat bumps.
Right. Now, when you started working these early shows, this is when you were Twin Cities, Twin Rivers, Jack.
Two Rivers Jack. That was the first time. It was actually the first night I debuted. I remember I sold like 300 tickets. I'm not kidding you. I hustled.
Yeah,
like my hometown.
Oh, you mean you got people to buy the 300 tickets?
Yes, I sold to my friends, family, guys that I worked with.
Yeah.
Like I went around, hung flyers. I was like really excited about my first match.
Yeah.
So I packed them in this place.
Nice.
And then the next night I worked for Rock and Randy down in it was like Whitewater, Wisconsin, whatever. It was funny because CM Punk and Colt Cabana were both on that show.
Yeah.
And he called me Two Rivers Jack. I got no music, and I wrestled a fake Golga. Remember Golga?
Yeah.
So it was just a big guy that wore a mask. And I remember I got one piece of offense. It was a drop kick, which he no-sold.
Yeah.
It was a good drop kick too, but he just like staggered a little bit, But it was his way of like, you don't get anything when you come into the business. Right. You got to earn it.
Sure.
Which I knew. I was like,
yeah, of course. I always tell the story about when Dominic sent us to WWF 83, 93, I think it might have been early. And the first time I went, I was so naive. I used my real name, and next time I was like, bit pretentious. I thought, like, if I ever hope to have a career, I don't want to be known as that guy, right? So the next time I was Mike Kelly.
Oh, okay.
But when he sent us up there, I say obviously, most times at the independent shows, like even back then, were they filming? Were they taping it?
Most of them, it was at least a hard cam.
Yeah. Just something they could feed back, like in training and show you. And good.
If not, I always made sure that like my girlfriend's brother had a camera and he was filming it, like just so that I could watch myself back. And
that honestly, that's light years ahead. Like I would have never, in my first year or two in the business, thought of that. I was so focused just on the wrestling stuff and trying to pick that up. Was there any reason you did that? Was it consciously? I want to have a record so I can learn.
Yep.
Wow.
I wanted to watch my stuff back and see what I did good and what I did.
Yeah, that green in the business, that's poorly. Impressive. Like I would have never thought of that. Yeah, crazy. When you, like even today, like can you watch your stuff back and not be hypercritical?
No.
You see every mistake, right?
Every mistake.
Yeah, it's awful.
I always tell my students this. I have never, and it's like, whenever I have a student who's sort of like, they'll watch one of their matches and they're really giddy about it and really happy and stuff. And I'm like,
I'm great.
Or they're just looking for a pat on the back from me. Like, did you see my drop? Yeah, of course your drop kick was good. Your drop kick was good. Like, and I get it. Like people do need that pat on the back.
Yeah.
And everybody responds different. Like everybody needs a different coaching style.
Yeah.
But I am super critical. I've never had a match in my life that I've watched it and gone like, that was awesome.
Oh yeah, same here. Yeah.
My favorite match that I've ever been a part of was Kurt Angle, 2009 lockdown inside a steel cage for TNA.
Yeah.
And I still watch it to this day and cringe at certain parts. Why did I do that?
But see, I think that's why you've attained to the business, right? It's if we're our own worst enemy, our own critics. I honestly, I say this all the time. And I firmly believe this. People say, "Hey, you've mastered the business." I don't think it's possible to master the business. You can get well versed in it.
Yep.
But like, I still learn stuff. I would go, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
It's crazy.